Greetings, welcome to Griff's log for December 1st, 2024. And today I tried only asking questions when I had a conversation. In particular, I think one of the things that I realized the other day was that I have a very big problem, which is that I like to talk a lot. As you can tell by this channel, I'm a big fan of just yapping. But the issue with yapping is that it doesn't give the other person a chance to contribute any of their thoughts. Obviously, I'm cognizant of that, so I try to yap in a way that might encourage discussion or might, give someone an opportunity to jump in. But the issue with that approach is that it's no longer demonstrating any type of curiosity on my part. You know what I mean? Like if you are entirely talking, I've had these types of conversations with a friend where like they talk, okay, they sparked some type of thought in me. I talk. I spark a thought in them. They talk, etc. Right? And we just keep going back and forth talking at each other. But it's like we are having a conversation by virtue of sharing information with each other. It's like I share a piece of information, which sparks a new piece of information. We like theorize about a thing, or we come up with some tangential that ultimately makes sense. It's a very different style of communication than asking questions and then waiting and then asking a question and then waiting and then asking a question. So I really wanted to experiment with that type of way of speaking because I think I really struggle with it. I am very good at dumping information, very bad at asking questions. And I've been thinking a lot about this from like the perspective of streaming as well. Is that when I'm streaming, I think the feeling that I have is that I must entertain, that I must speak from a point of view where I'm figuring out the right answer. I'm figuring out the right thing to say. That given this input, I find a funny output or I find an entertaining output. But I think that an experiment I'd like to do on stream on my main channel is try out just figuring out a way to ask a question given what I'm doing. And if there are no questions to ask, then just chill for a second, calm down and wait for a fun question. There's this prevailing wisdom that if you're streaming, you should always be talking. And that's how I've always thought about it. And I think that's why I'm in the habit of this info dumping. Or it's a little bit more neurological with divergence here. But I think that like I've been trained to just talk. And I think I'd like to continue this journey of figuring out, hey man, what if you just don't? And then you ask, hey, what did you think about what just happened? What do you guys think about this? And just figure out these fun ways to ask questions and these fun ways to be curious about other people. Usually I'm curious about an idea or concept or some way of thinking. So I get really curious about, wow, what do you think about this thing? But in a way that's kind of like, here's this really interesting topic. And then I wait for them to jump in. And if they don't jump in, then it's just a one-sided conversation, one-sided lecture. But what can really happen is, when I'm having a conversation with one of my buddies, Diego, for example, I just keep spouting information. But he's the type of person that'll interrupt and jump in and like find a point where he can say something interesting. And then I'm the type where I'll interrupt and jump in. And so when we have this dynamic, it actually works really well because I say a really fun thing, he says a really fun thing, I say a really fun thing. It's really great. But in a situation where the other person is more respectful, like my girlfriend, she's very respectful, I think it's very easy for me to bulldoze and for me to be the only one talking. And although she's kind and will listen, I think that's not what I should be doing. And I should be asking questions and being curious in a way that is more overt rather than this implied, hey, I'm talking about this thing, feel free to jump in at any point, and more of a, hey, there's this thing, let's talk about it, and I'm going to ask you questions and figure out what you think. So I think what I've learned about asking questions is that, one, it's very hard. If you only ask questions, well then, oh boy, I mean, it's actually really, really, really hard to do that. And I think I didn't do it quite right. So I'm going to try again. But I think that, it's really easy for me to go on a tangent and not ask any questions. Holy moly. And I don't even realize I'm doing it until I've already done it for 5 minutes. And then I ask a question. But it's really important. I just get so excited to talk about something. I'm really excited. but I think that it's something I'd like to work on and challenge myself with. And I'm curious what you guys think, because, you know, asking questions is hard. Sometimes finding the right question is difficult. But maybe I think I'm thinking about it too much. Maybe I'm trying to find the right question or the thing I'm most curious about. Whereas I think that maybe relying more on intuition of just, yeah, they just said something. Okay, let me ask a question about it. Not thinking about it too hard, just like, okay, I just had some food. What food did you have? I just got back from work. Oh, what'd you do at work? Right? Like instead of needing to find like the best framing for the question or the best funny, most interesting approach, decreasing the cognitive load and being like, you know, just being curious and asking the question and getting out of my own head. That is actually and I would say this is probably the most interesting thing that I noticed about focusing on asking questions, is that I could physically feel as though my mind was less in my own head. It did feel as though like it was out there, if that makes sense. I don't know if anyone else has felt that. Like if you just ask questions, then it felt like my mind was here rather than here. I don't know if that makes sense. Because I'm not thinking as much about what's going on in here. I'm thinking about what's happening over there and understanding it. So if my goal is to understand other people, if my goal is to, you know, be a good boyfriend, if my goal is to be a good friend, I feel like the way to do that would be to have my mind on the other person and to focus on them and to understand more about who they are, and therefore ask questions to figure out that understanding. Again, got to be cautious about it not sounding like an interview, not sounding like, damn, you know, I'm quizzing you and stuff, but more like, you said something, I'm really interested. Let me figure out the thing that you're really interested in and be interested in it. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm thinking about, and that's probably the biggest lesson of December 1st, 2024. I think that was probably the most interesting thing of the day, is like just seeing what happened with that. I also played a ton of VR, Ragnarok, ping pong. It was pretty awesome, and chatted about a lot of stuff. I'm very grateful for, you know, dude, honestly, I'm really grateful. It's probably something I'm really grateful for. This is eating ramen, but got some spicy ramen with some beef jerky. Oh boy, I'm so grateful for it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Adios.